Check, check. Mic check 1 2. Mic check 1 2. Alright, so I want to talk about using the imagination, using visualization, and the power of pretending. The power of pretending. Like, once you're able to tap into your imagination, once you're able to activate your imagination like a child, whenever you're able to go back and find that childlike imagination, this shit is going to open up the power that it can have when it comes to using it to attract things into your life. This is real deal. This has been in place. This is how it's been working though, the whole time. Like our entire lives, right? So what I'm talking about now is when we start to get into the law of attraction and the law of assumption and magic and magnetism and all this. We're just talking about, we're taking something that's been there the entire time. We're taking a system that has been set up this entire time, that we've been using this entire time anyway, naturally. But naturally we do things more on a unconscious level, right? We want things appear, right? But for the average person, they don't look any more behind, right? You want something and you get up and you go to work and save up your money and go get it. Or if you want a girl, then you go walk up with some flowers, ask her out. Getting into occult science, we get it more into the metaphysical aspect or the hidden aspect of these things. So I'm gonna tell a little story, and I'm gonna try not to get too far off track, but if you stick around, I will bring it back home. It'll all come full circle. Back to using the power of your imagination and the power of pretending. Alright. So, years ago. I first started getting to a lot of this shit, right? When I first started getting to meditation, which, one thing leads to another. I started reading and learning about the law of attraction and shit. This is all at the same time. I was going through a lot of time, a hard time. Anyway, I was dealing with a real bad breakup. I wanted the chick who no longer wanted me, right? But I was kind of in that space to where I was desperate for, you know what I'm saying? Like, this is how it is when you in love with somebody who don't love you back at this point, right? So, it was eating me up so bad that not being with her, not having her, was eating me up so bad, you know what I'm saying? And I was tired of thinking about her. I was tired of thinking about wanting her and shit like that. I was under her spell, is what it is. See, we've been casting spells since the beginning of time, whether you in to magic or nah. You know what I'm saying? Like, this shit is about the power of your mind and emotions and shit like that. Really diving into magic is just about learning how to get a grip on all that shit and direct it to where you need the energy to go to manifest what it is that you actually want to happen. So, but before I was even deep into that shit and understood, this is before I understood how that worked, right? Before I understood the basic 1-2. So I was tired of torturing myself by always thinking about this chicken like this. So I decided that I was going to stop thinking about her. I was going to start just thinking of all the bad shit, the bad qualities, you know what I'm saying? Because I wanted to make myself not want her, right? The same as she did not want me. So I wanted to make myself not want her and to stop wanting her. So this was my logic. This is what I came up with. Every time I catch myself thinking about her and lusting over her and shit, then I would just start thinking about like the bad times that we had, or a bad quality, something that I didn't like about her, something that'd turn me off. Alright, this worked to it. Not like I planned it. Alright, so something that'd turn me off, and I did this, and I always did this. What it honestly did, it did help me. Not really, but it helped me feel like at the moment that it was working. I was losing my attraction for her. Underneath what it really did, it just made me real resentful towards her even more. You know what I'm saying? But that's a whole nother story. I'm saying that to say this. So that I did that, which is pretty much jinxing myself. Shit. And it just made the situation worse, really. So so then the more you know, the better you do. So then when I started understanding that I needed to put my mind elsewhere or whatever, the more that I was beginning to read and learn and dig off into the law of attraction and the power of the mind and shit like that, the more I was getting into meditating, right? So My biggest thing is that I wanted to clear my mind. I wanted to free my mind from it. You know what I'm saying? Because like that's where the feeling of torment come from. Just came from me being in my thoughts like that. So the more I got into meditation, a teacher a teacher explained how whenever you catch yourself dwelling on the things that you don't want, on something that you don't want. So whenever you catch yourself dwelling on negativity, right? Shift your thought. He said find a happy place in your mind. This could be a memory or this could be a fantasy, something that you create just using your imagination. But find a thought that makes you happy. Just thinking about it. It makes you happy, puts you at peace, right? And build this place up in your mind. Now then, whenever you find yourself thinking, when you find yourself dwelling in that negativity, then just shift your focus to this happy place. All right? So the happy place that I created in my mind was myself, because at the time I was going through a lot. So I was living in my mama's house and I was sleeping in my nephew's bedroom with him. It was 2 twin size beds in there and shit. You know what I'm saying? I had this vision in my mind of me laying down on my nephew's floor, counting handfuls of $100 bills. This is the thought that I came up with. This was what I came up with to be my happy place, right? At the time, I wasn't aiming to manifest it or nothing. It wasn't about that. It was just about me creating this happy place in my mind so I can have somewhere to check out to for whenever I get to dwelling and spinning off in that depressed shit, right? So I would do this over and over and over. You know what I'm saying? Because like I said, I was going through it. You know what I'm saying? So I found myself constantly just having to do it just to ease my mind and just to shift my train of thought in any given moment. So a lot of things were shaking up in my life at the time. But one day, after a little time has passed, not much, but one day, things happened in my life. But I remember I was laying on the floor one day, because I had been broken, all that shit. After a little time passed, I finally came up on, you know what I'm saying, like I finally came up, was getting back on my feet and all this shit. And I was laying on the floor in my nephew's room one day. And I was just laying there just counting some money. You know what I'm saying? Just off of my own thoughts. And I was just laying there just counting the money and shit. I had my safe open. And in the middle of me counting this money, that's when it hit me. Like it was just like, and I looked around and I realized, I said, get the fuck out of here. I said, this is my vision. I said, I'm actually inside of my vision. Like that shit just like hit me out the blue. And I was like, what the fuck? I'm laying here on the bedroom floor counting fucking wads of crisp blue hundreds. Thousands of dollars, right? So I'm like, so that just threw me off because at the time when I started the visualization, I was broke as shit. I ain't had nothing going on. You know what I'm saying? I just whatever. Anyway, once that happened, Once that happened, once I realized that, I had that self realization for myself, then I was like, oh, yeah, this shit is real. Right? I'm like, that's crazy. Like, so anyway, after I knew that, I'm like, okay, now I'm gonna start using this shit. I'm about to start deliberately. I'm putting this shit to the test for real now. So, so listening to Brother Panic a lot and shit during this time is when I was really getting in there, in tune with him, listening to his lectures and shit. And I just remember he would always be saying some shit like when it comes to the visualizing things and shit, like he would always be like, visualize like whatever, like something that you're interested in. You know what I'm saying? Something that you like don't get caught up in trying to be politically correct about this shit. He's like, visualize something that's easy for you to visualize, right? So I'd be with the homies and shit. So like now I'm putting this shit to the test. I'm putting this shit to the test now, right? To see if this shit was a fluke or is this really how this shit works, or at least a significant part of how this shit works. So I be with the homies and shit. We be at the crib and we was drinking, sipping a lot of lean at the time, a lot of syrup, right? But if you know, you know, especially a while back, like that shit was hard to get, hard to come across, right? Because it's a real hot commodity. So it was hard to come across, and we be just sitting around and shit talking about like, man, who got some drink, bruh? Ooh, man, like, oh no. And I think in my mind, I be like, man, we can manifest some drinks, nigga. Like, this is in my mind. I'm not saying this to them, but I need to prove it to myself. So I'm like, just the same way, me visualizing me laying on the floor counting them hundreds and all that shit. I'm like, shit, I'm gonna start doing this. I'm gonna try this with this. So I start meditating. I start doing meditations, taking a few moments throughout the day. And I meditate. And I would imagine myself holding the bottle in my hand. I would imagine what the bottle felt like and all this shit. I'll be pretending. I visualize and see myself and feel myself pouring it. You know, just the whole nine, like really trying to make it as real as I could. And then I would do that shit, right? And then like the next day or the next 2 days, it'll pop up. So then I do it again, right? Just like, man, like, pop up again. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, like, nah. Like, I done did shit too often, too many times now. So now I'm like, okay, ain't no way, like, this ain't no coincidence. You know what I'm saying? Like, because I'm deliberately doing this shit, right? So I'm like, yeah, that ain't no coincidence. This is what I'm talking about when I talk about the power of pretending. If you can tap back into that childlike imagination, and those of you that know, like y'all know, and you understand exactly what I'm talking about, and you know, like, you get it. And you know that what I say is the absolute real deal. Like, now, I ain't saying that you ain't got to do nothing but pretend to have something and it pop up. But shit, sometimes do. Like anything, you know what I'm saying? There's other factors, many other factors that contributes to this. The main one being, is it something that is already, is it something that is accessible to you, like casually, regularly, you know what I'm saying? Or is it something that's like, you know, like a whole lot of different things that had to change in your life in order for this to appear in your life? It's a big difference between the two, right? So when I was doing like that with the drink bottle and shit, this is already something. It was something that I already had a relationship with. You know what I'm saying? Like, I already knew it was something that wasn't no big deal. Like, it wasn't no, like, finding a bottle of drink, though it was getting more difficult, but it wasn't nothing that was like outside of normal. So those things that I pretend with and like that and meditate on, that was kind of easily accessible to me. They will pop up in my life like boom, 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 boom. You know what I'm saying? Like clockwork. Because really, I realized even then, be like, shit, I'm doing the same thing that I've always been doing my entire life. When we get to obsessing over things and you know what I'm saying, strongly desiring certain things, and I was just doing it unconsciously. I just didn't know what I was doing. You know what I'm saying? Like the regular person. But once you start to tap off into the mechanics of the subconscious mind and how certain basic things work like that, then shit, you know? I could do you another one before I get up off of here. Through the time. Now, the woman I was talking about in the beginning that I was tripping about and all that shit. So this time has passed now and all this shit, right? Now I'm getting inside. I told you, now I'm learning this shit about the subconscious, you know what I'm saying? And I'm knowing now how to I'm manifesting things. I'm manifesting little shit almost at will and all this, right? So the woman, it was her, and it was also another woman who was my side piece at the time when I had lost the first woman. This woman was my side piece at that time, but I done lost her too. So It was like I lost two bad bitches. Talking about. Um, but through time, so now I'm into this whole imagination thing. When I tell you about the power of pretending, and I was trying to get both of these chicks back, like almost the entire time. You know what I'm saying? Like I was always like, nigga, I wanted both of them back. You talking about? And life was just somewhere else. I wasn't nowhere close. Nothing let me know that I was anywhere close to pulling in either one of these females. You know what I'm saying? Like the side piece at this time, like she wasn't even returning no messages from me and shit. And I'm writing long ass book, texting long ass messages and shit. You know what I'm talking about? She ain't even texting me back and shit. You know what I'm saying? So like this is where, you know what I'm saying, this is at. So still ain't neither one of these females for real showing no interest in fucking with me. Right? At this time, but I'm going back in my imagination now. I'm like, shit. Like nigga, I'm seeing that this shit's for real. Check it out. And if you really listen, I'm really giving you a couple spells during the way if you if you catch on to it. So rituals that you can use in your own life if you ain't got none that's working. So neither one of the chicks is fucking with me, right? So I started going to bed at night. I'm staying in the house all by myself at this time. I want them both back. I'm tuning into the power of my subconscious mind and my imagination and pretending shit and all of that, right? Meditating, just, you know what I'm saying? So I'm going to bed at night now by myself. But now I'm saying, okay. I start pretending the first woman, both of them, but first, it was more the first woman who I initially wanted back the most. I can't even say the most, but I want her back. You get it. I start going to bed at night, and as I'm going to bed at night, so I go into a meditation. As I'm falling asleep, I'm pretending that she's laying in the bed with me. She's sleeping with me at night when I'm laying down. I'm doing this. So I'm doing that. You know what I'm saying? Like these would be my meditations. You know what I'm saying? I'm doing that. I make a little habit out of doing that, right? And then I start blending in the side piece. I'm doing the same thing. Doing the same thing with her. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to bed. I'm pretending she laying next to me. You know what I'm saying? I'm visualizing. I'm falling asleep with this shit on my mind. With this shit on my mind. All right? That's like occult science, like 101. If you really want to listen, if you really want to kick your man, if you really want to kick your visualization, creative visualization is a common book term. All right? Your visualization, if you really want to kick that shit in gear, fall asleep with this shit on your mind. Deliberately. You know what I'm saying? Instead of falling asleep thinking about just letting your mind wander everywhere else, right? If it's something you want to manifest, something that's within reach, Fall asleep with that shit in your mind. All right. See yourself doing that as you go to sleep. All right. These are things that I didn't know at the time, but this is what I'm taking what I do know, and I'm saying, well, shit. If this is how it works, then this shit should work. I'm about to see if it do. This is where my mind was at the time. This is where my mind was at the time. It wasn't that long. Bro, I got both of them back. I was back smashing both of them. Moved back in with the first woman. The second woman became my side piece once again. And this was coming from a stage of neither one of these chicks was showing in any interest in fucking with me at this time. At least not to me. You know what I'm talking about? The power in pretending, right? This wasn't shit I had to read in the book. Though I read lots of different shit. But these I'm giving you experiences. You know what I'm saying? I'm giving you the insight on what was going on in my mind. And I did this shit time after time, right? The power of your imagination, the power of pretending. That's why now, the more I get into magic and I'm reading all these books, I can practice these different things. The one common factor in all of this shit, once you get down to rituals and all of this shit, is always brings you to having a childlike imagination and pretending. Period. You get doing rituals about you summoning spirits. It's gonna be like, hey, pretend that you're actually calling out to someone, right? Pretend that you're calling out to a friend. Don't just say the name just to be saying it like it's a mantra. But say the name the same way you would say it, as if you was calling out to your friend in the other room, right? Pretend as if they could really hear you. It always is going to be whatever it is. Some of these, it's all comes back. It all comes down and back to the power of pretending, to using your imagination, to using fantasy. That's just what's up. You know what I'm saying? It'd be a lot of, you read about a lot of different visualizations and shit in the book. You know what I'm saying? Imagine you see this lightning bolt coming down from the sky and it strikes this, and imagine that you feel this power. Imagine that the sun is in your chest, in the middle of your chest, right at your heart. Imagine what this will feel like. Imagine what that would feel like. It all comes down to everything I see in this magic shit. At the end of the day, it still all comes down to using your imagination and pretending this and pretending about that. Period. You know what I'm saying? It's different levels to everything, of course. Of course. But that's one key principle. Now I'm saying in all of this shit, it all comes back to you activating your imagination. Like, that's a fact. The power in pretending. I think I'm gonna leave it here and catch up on the next one. Shit, that motherfucker was longer than I thought it was gonna be.